I grew up in suburban Detroit, and I did a PhD in economics at Berkeley. I grew up.
Your mom is Israeli.
My mother's Israeli. She's a Holocaust survivor, and she grew
She's a Holocaust survivor?
Yeah, she was born in Hungary in 1941, and she moved to Israel. She was on the first legal ship into Israel, the Kefalos ship in 1948. And she met my father in 1963, if I'm correct. And they met on a Friday, and he proposed on a Sunday. And she said no, so he went back to Minnesota. So then he sent her $1,000, and so she said okay. She came visited him, and in 2 weeks it was a done deal. So my background is I'm American. I grew up in Detroit, but from a strong Zionist background. And so I was visiting Israel to see my nephews. My sister lives there. I was during the financial crisis, and I remember I went to a talk, and I gave a talk, and the woman who invited me, my mom was at the talk, so she writes on a note and she passes it to the woman. She's like, "Yeshach mishi bishvil ben sheli," like, do you have anyone to set my son up with? And she says, "Mu yavo, anachnu nitapel bo," like, if he comes, we'll take care of him. So it was the week where I was waiting to hear back from job interviews in America. It's just 2009, and things are starting to fall apart. 2008, and I thought, you know what? It wouldn't be so bad to move to Israel. And so I called Hebrew University. I emailed somebody there, and they said, "Come give a talk," and I loved it, and I love my department, living in Israel in general, plus or minus, as we say. So that's my story. I got here because a good friend of mine in graduate school, Raimundo, is on staff at Colegio de Mexico, and he said, "Come, give a talk." He'd come to Israel before, and I said, "Okay." And I'm going to start a sabbatical this year at Princeton, and so that's it. So I came out for a few days, and I'm having a great time. So I do work on development economics, issues related to developing countries, and the World Bank is interested in these issues. So one of the things I've specialized on is missing women in China. So there's high sex ratios in China, and we looked at some of the consequences of having too many men in China, surplus males, for the marriage market and for crime. Now I'm working with the World Bank on something on Armenia, which also has high sex ratios at birth. There's too many men relative to women, and looking at why that happens. Well, at Hebrew University, I'm part of a new group of people that we're really trying to expand the economics department. So Hebrew University, they had a golden era of economics in the 50s and 60s, and they had one of the best departments in the world. A lot of people went to America, and so now we're trying to rebuild our department. First, people went to Tel Aviv, and then they left to America. And now we're trying to improve the economics department at Hebrew U, and it's getting better. It's very good. There's the old generation who's really good, and now there's new people coming. So I'm teaching a class in environmental economics, which is what I was teaching at Colegio de Mexico, a mini course. I also teach development economics. My work is primarily related to developing countries about demographic issues. So I looked at stuff about air pollution in China, water pollution, some of the patterns that we see, both in health and in welfare in some of these developing countries, and why that's interesting to the economics. This issue, let me give you a little background. In the early 1990s, Amartya Sen was one of the first economists to notice this. There were other demographers who noticed it in Bangladesh a little earlier. But they talked about this problem of missing women, which was millions of women who are not observed in census data, which means that places that you should have roughly 105 boys for every 100 girls, places that have 115 or 120 boys for every 100 girls. And at first it wasn't known what was going on here. Why were there all these missing women? And now we realize a lot of it was either some combination of sex-selective abortion or infanticide. When people use the word gendercide, I think they're trying to make you think of this as a genocide. Now, I don't quite think of that in those terms because, for example, Roe v. Wade, did did abortion kill millions of unborn children? You know, someone said there are more women who've been killed from gender side than in all the wars combined. Well, that's true about abortion in general. And in fact, it's true in human history. Humanity has always committed infanticide. You can even think of birth control as a form of infanticide if you want to. I mean, these are deep questions of the cosmic. I guess after I die, God will tell me when life began. Till then, we'll just have to guess. But so gendercide, though, is a reflection. There's something deeply disturbing of when humanity chooses to avoid female birth.